My name is... My name is Helen Morris. If someone is listening to this, I'm trapped.
The mountain air was crisp and cool. As the bus carrying the graduating students pulled up to the old Adelaide Hotel, Mr. Carter, their history teacher, adjusted his glasses for the third time during the trip and smiled at his students. He reminded his students that the hotel had once been the estate of the noble Adelaide family, whose history they had been studying all semester, as he stood speaking to them inside the bus. Helen Morris, a 19-year-old student, thrilled. She had always been fascinated by history, especially mysterious family secrets. In her hand, she clutched her favorite recorder, a birthday gift from her father. The first 2 days of the trip went wonderfully. The students visited the local museum, studied the archives in the library, and took walks around the area. Professor Carter was unusually enthusiastic. He was clearly searching for something in the old documents, constantly jotting down notes in his notebook. The third morning was meant to be special. The city was celebrating Founding Day, an ancient local holiday observed throughout the region. It was a grand event not to be missed. A fair, concerts, traditional dances, and festive treats. All the hotel staff had gone to the city that morning, leaving only the old night watchman Thomas to stay on duty. The students were also getting ready for the celebration, but in the morning, Helen felt unwell. She had a headache and was feeling nauseous. She told Sarah she didn't want to ruin everyone's mood and suggested they go without her while she stayed back to rest. Mr. Carter hesitated, unwilling to leave the student alone, but he had plans of his own. In the archives, he had found mentions of a secret room in the Adelaide estate, and this was the perfect opportunity to test the legend. He decided to stay with Helen. He'd check on her condition and take the opportunity to investigate something at the hotel while he was at it. The group of students left for the city early in the morning. The mountain roads became deadly dangerous, and the festival organizers suggested that all the guests spend the night in a city hotel. The students stayed in the city, planning to return the next day. But the third evening brought horror. The next morning, when the group returned from town, they were met with tragic news. Old Thomas the guard had woken up to discover that Helen and Mr. Carter had disappeared. He had been sleeping soundly. The elderly man said apologetically to the police officers. He took out his hearing aid at night. He hadn't heard a thing. He had thought they had gone to the city too. Helen's bed was neatly made, her belongings carefully packed in the suitcase, even her slippers placed by the bed. But the girl herself was gone. Panic swept through everyone when it turned out that Mr. Carter had also disappeared. His car was missing from the parking lot. The police who were called found the teacher's car wrecked on a mountain road 20 kilometers from the hotel. The night downpour made the road deadly dangerous. Professor Carter died instantly. But where was Helen? The search went on for 2 weeks. They combed the entire area, checking every ravine, every cave. The girl's room was carefully examined. Old wooden panels, worn wallpaper, creaking floorboards. The case was closed as an unsolved disappearance. A few days later, Mrs. Wilson, an elderly writer seeking inspiration in the mountains, moved into the ill-fated room. On the very first night, she awoke to a faint voice. Mrs. Wilson searched the room, but found no one. The next night the voice returned, but this time she was certain it was coming from the walls. The woman immediately moved out, telling the hotel owners about the strange sounds. The rumor of a ghost quickly spread, first through the town and then throughout the entire region. The locals, with a sense of awe, passed from mouth to mouth the story of the spirit of the missing student, who wandered the corridors of the old hotel, calling for help with a thin, sorrowful voice. No one had occupied Helen's room, since guests refused to stay there, even at half price. Tourists began to avoid the Adelaide. Bookings were canceled one after another. The hotel stopped turning a profit, and the owner seriously considered selling. 5 years passed. The bankrupt hotel changed hands, and the new owners decided to do a major renovation. Workers were tearing down the old partitions in that very room when one of them noticed something strange in the wall. In a small gap between the bricks lay an old audio cassette. On it, written in faded ink, was a single word: Helen. The police arrived within an hour. Detective Riley carefully inserted the cassette into the tape player and pressed play. A familiar voice came through the speakers, the very same one that had been searched for 5 years ago.
My name is Helen Morris. If anyone is listening to this, I'm trapped. This is the 3rd day, and I don't know if anyone will find me. I need to tell the truth about what happened. It all started that night when I couldn't sleep, or alternatively, the hotel was almost empty. Everyone had gone to the festival in town. Only Professor Carter, old guard Thomas, who was asleep in his room on the 1st floor, and I remained. It was around midnight when I heard a soft knock at the door. When the door opened, I saw Professor Carter. He looked terrified. And behind him stood a stranger, in a dark jacket with a gun in his hand. He apologized to me for dragging me into this, his voice trembling. He said the man had intercepted him in the hallway and was forcing him to show what he had found in the archives. The man told the professor to shut up and take him to the bunker, hissing as he shoved him into the room. He said he knew the entrance was there. He'd been searching for the Adelaide family documents and gold for years. Then he told me to stand still and not move. At that moment, a whistle sounded from the hallway. The criminal said it was his partner, and he'd gone to check if there were any other witnesses. The building was almost empty, which worked in their favor. They didn't have much time. I was terrified, but Professor Carter gave me a reassuring nod. He walked over to the wall and started feeling along the old wooden panels. He said it was here Adelaide's family had built a secret room during the war. They were afraid soldiers would come for them. The criminal exclaimed that he'd finally found it. Years of searching had paid off. He demanded to know where the gold was. The 3 of us entered the secret room. It was bigger than I'd expected, a real bunker with bookshelves, old furniture, and trunks. But there was no gold, only manuscripts, books, and family documents. The criminal was furious. He started yelling at the professor. At that moment, the professor grabbed a heavy book from the shelf and struck the criminal's arm. The gun fell, and they started fighting. In the chaos, Professor Carter grabbed the weapon. A shot rang out. The criminal lay on the floor, showing no signs of life. The professor whispered that he didn't know what he'd done. Overcome with panic, he mumbled incoherent words about how the criminal had an accomplice, that they might kill me if they found me. He made me stay in the secret room. He said he'd drive to the police and explain everything. I'd be safe here, he told me. No one knew about this place. He said he'd be back soon. There was no time to explain now. From the outside it was simple. One wooden panel stuck out a few millimeters, and you just had to press it. From the inside it was much harder, but he promised he'd return quickly with the police. The mountains blocked even radio signals. Cell phones and police radios wouldn't work. He needed to get to town. He locked me in that room and drove away, but he never made it to the police. About an hour after the professor left, I heard footsteps in the main room. My heart leapt high, thought he'd come back, but the voice was unfamiliar, rough.
Max, you bastard, did you decide to double-cross me? Took all the gold and ran off. He shouted louder and louder. I told you couldn't be trusted.
He argued a little more and then left, slamming the door. Apparently, he thought he'd been deceived and abandoned. If only he had known the truth. If only he had found the secret room. But the mechanism to open it was known only to Professor Carter. I've been here for 3 days. I tried to find from inside the wooden panel the professor pressed, but the wall looks different from here, and I can't open the door. I shout, I pound on the walls, but no one can hear me. This room is built like a bunker, sound doesn't carry through. Guard Thomas is probably asleep and wouldn't hear me anyway. Even if the sound got out, he takes off his hearing aid at night. There's no more water, no food either. Mr. Carter wanted to protect me. He didn't know he was condemning me to death. He thought he would come back quickly. Please, find my family. Tell them I love them. I have an idea how to get this recording out. There's an old ventilation shaft in the corner of the room. Narrow, but it seems to lead to a wall in the main building. I'll try to push the cassette through it.
When the police broke into the secret room, they found the remains of Helen Morris and an unidentified man. The girl was lying by the opposite wall, where there was indeed an old ventilation shaft, wide enough to push a cassette through, but far too narrow for a person. During the search, when the police tapped on the walls, the hidden door was concealed by an old wall panel restored to match the original. Old security guard Thomas blamed himself for the tragedy until the day he died. If only he hadn't been sleeping so soundly, if only he hadn't taken out his hearing aid, maybe he would have heard the cries for help and saved the girl. The case of Helen's disappearance was finally closed. The family got the answers they'd been searching for, and the memory of the brave student and her professor was immortalized in the local museum. The Adelaide family's secret room no longer hides anyone, but sometimes, locals say, echoes of the past can still be heard in the old inn, the quiet voice of a girl who managed to tell the truth even after death. She didn't live to see rescue, but her voice proved stronger than death itself.